The following event describes a real crime that took place in 1992. However, the names of the characters and the location of the event have been changed to preserve the anonymity of individuals who still live in that area. During the investigation of a murder, it's crucial that all traces at the crime scene remain undisturbed. The Public Order Police Patrol secures the location. The work of the technicians is directed by the commander of the response team, usually a criminal investigator. The investigator, along with other detectives, listens carefully to the words of the forensic doctor. A criminal psychologist is also present, observing the surroundings and literally absorbing the atmosphere of the gruesome scene. On a cold, unfriendly March evening in 1992, as clouds crept over the quiet streets of New York, a story unfolded that should shake the very foundations of justice. In the heart of the city, an unfriendly weather brewed, casting a tangible gloom over the city's usually bustling streets. The fog, thick and relentless, crept along the avenues and alleys like a living entity, intent on smothering every inch of the urban landscape. It rolled in from the river, a silent invader, blurring the line between the sky and the towering skyscrapers. The chill in the air was more than mere temperature, it was a presence that seeped through clothing, numbing the skin and chilling the bones. People, huddled in their overcoats, moved like shadows through the mist, their footsteps muffled, their faces barely discernible. The usual cacophony of the city was subdued, as if the fog had absorbed the sound. Streetlights, their glow dim and distant, struggled to pierce the dense veil. The yellow of their light seemed to dissolve before reaching the ground, leaving the sidewalks in a perpetual twilight. Even the vibrant neon signs, usually piercing the night with their garish hues, were muted, reduced to soft, colored blurs. As the day wore on, the cold intensified, and the fog thickened, as if the very essence of the city was being slowly erased. In this shrouded environment, the city held its breath, waiting for the fog to lift, for the clarity to return, for the rhythm of life to resume its normal pace. At the police headquarters, the phone suddenly rang. A young woman, her voice trembling, reported to the attending officer that she was unable to enter the apartment of an acquaintance. After providing the lawmen with the location of her acquaintance's residence, she hung up. She chose not to reveal her name. The officer immediately dispatched a patrol to the specified location. The story began in an older house, within whose walls a horror took place that no one should ever experience. In a semi-derelict apartment, each piece of which told the story of the long and lonely years of its inhabitant, lay the bloodied corpse of an old man. His face was disfigured, and his eyes, once capable of telling stories of many years, now stared into emptiness. In that room, as if cut out of time and reality, lay a scene so bizarre it seemed the product of a fantastical dream. At the center of this claustrophobic chamber, a witness to the old man's final moments, lay his body. His head was adorned with a long wooden log, protruding from his skull like a grotesque monument to his last moment of life. Around the lying body were traces of a violent struggle. Shards of a broken bottle, scattered across the floor, were both silent witnesses and loud cries of horror. Blood spatter on the carpet and walls created a chaotic image, reminiscent of some wild, uncontrolled art. Personal belongings scattered everywhere, spilled and tossed drawers, spoke of a desperate search for something intangible, perhaps truth, perhaps forgiveness. Upon a more thorough examination by police technicians, it was discovered that the assailant, among other things, used improvised weapons against the elderly man, a broken bottle, a long metal shoehorn, and a kitchen chopping board for meat. It was an instance of irrational violence, the likes of which the officers had never encountered in their careers. Technicians secured traces on a window that had been violently broken from the inside, though it was only necessary to open it. Likely, this was the perpetrator's escape route. Everything now indicated that the murderer was not a cold-blooded professional, but an amateur driven by fear and a confused mind. The attack was carried out with such wildness that it raised questions about the motive. A summoned psychologist thoroughly examined the crime scene. After familiarizing himself with the facts, he developed a study that significantly helped the detectives narrow down the circle of suspects. According to the psychologist, it was the act of a smaller, more subtle person, whose violence was more an act of desperation than controlled aggression. The strange passion and excessive aggression of the attack suggested that the perpetrator might have been afraid of something. Perhaps he feared that the old man would regain his strength and start to defend himself. This case, full of paradoxes and unspoken questions, revealed the dark side of the human psyche, where fear, aggression, and despair mix into a dangerous cocktail that can lead to tragedy. A tense atmosphere prevailed at the crime scene, thick enough to cut. The forensic technicians carefully examined every detail, while their commander, an experienced detective, directed the entire scene with the precision of a wind orchestra conductor. The summoned coroner also leaned towards the view that it was an act full of chaos, despair, and improvisation. From the broken bottle and blood spatters on the carpet and walls, it was evident that the murderer was not a cold-blooded professional, but rather an amateur caught in his own emotions. Each item in the room, from the scattered drawers to the pieces of wood and shards of bottle, told a story of chaos and violence. Upon closer examination, the contours of the perpetrator began to emerge. A small, subtle figure, someone who was afraid and in desperation crossed a line. Detectives began to assemble a mosaic of events, while trying to penetrate the depths of the victim's personality and life. The old man, who had lived a life of seclusion, found himself at the crossroads of loneliness and the need for human contact in his later years. Conversations with the residents of the house revealed that the old man often invited young women from the fringes of society to his home. For their services, he often handed over the last money he had. As the investigation continued, detectives focused on details that could reveal the perpetrator. Technical evidence suggested that the old man had let his murderer into his home without fear. This led to the assumption that the victim knew his killer. It was the work of someone driven by emotions and impulses. Detectives began to see more clearly in the case. They primarily focused on less affluent young women, whom the old man sought out on the streets and then invited to his home. Could one of them be the killer? Based on the physique of the person who dealt the fatal blows to the man, a woman could be the murderer. However, one aspect didn't fit the psychological profile of a woman. The killer had pulled out drawers from the cabinets, flinging them a considerable distance. This act didn't seem to stem from anger but appeared somewhat theatrical, as if performing for an audience of one. A psychologist suggested that a woman would have removed the drawers more cautiously and searched through them more gently. Therefore, the detectives shifted their focus to a male perpetrator of this serious crime. Could it be the boyfriend of one of the women who provided services to the old man? Or perhaps a relative, intent on defending her honor. Alternatively, it could be someone well acquainted with one of the women who visited the elderly man's household, who learned from her that the old man occasionally had a significant amount of cash at home, which could be relatively easily obtained. Detectives began to gradually investigate people from the old man's vicinity, focusing on his closest circle. Among the suspects was also a group of young women with whom the old man had associated in recent years. In this tangle of human destinies and crime, the police discovered a crucial element, information about a young man who had recently had trouble with an injury to his hand. This man, named Dennis, known for his impulsive nature and propensity for violence, quickly became the center of the detective's attention. During the interrogation, he cleverly tried to avoid uncomfortable questions. However, layers of his personality began to be revealed. He was someone who liked to show off, seeking attention and recognition. His fascination with movie heroes and a thirst for action may have led him to cross the line of the law. Dennis confessed to the detectives that he often watched Rambo and other films with combat themes. Under pressure from the investigators, Dennis finally admitted that he only wanted to scare the old man. He was particularly bothered by his inappropriate behavior towards young women. He claimed he did not want to kill the old man, but the situation got out of control. He admitted that at one point he stopped thinking rationally and began to act impulsively. He apparently wanted to settle scores with the old man not only because of the young women but also because of his sister, whom the old man financially rewarded for her services. Dennis's confession was a key moment in the investigation, opening the path to justice for the victim, whose life ended tragically and unexpectedly. The detectives, with the help of technical evidence and detailed investigation, uncovered the truth that was hidden behind the walls of the old house. According to Dennis, he believed he would scare the old man and get some money as a bonus. But the old man turned on Dennis and wanted to throw him out of the apartment. The young man, therefore, started to fight with him. In a fit of rage, he eventually brutally murdered him. He then searched the apartment. However, he found no money. Finally, he escaped through the window.